Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Randy Long joining us. Randy, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to our time together.
Yeah, I am as well. So, Randy, for those who aren't familiar with your work, just take a minute and explain what you do.
We run a consulting company that helps business owners prepare for a transition to the next generation or prepare for a third-party sale. Sometimes it goes to employees too, but largely we work in the other two markets the most. That's a simple statement of it anyway.
That's a good start. We'll definitely dig into that. So you consult on helping companies to prepare for a sale or transition. What were you doing before that? I mean, take us back to the beginning. How did Randy Long get to where he is today?
I'm going to take you way back. So as a kid, I started working at age 6. I know that's illegal these days, but I had my first little job picking cucumbers when I was a little kid, which was kind of cool, actually. But anyway, I worked through a bunch of entrepreneurs when I was growing up, and I really had a lot of respect for them. I learned a lot from ones that did it well and also ones that didn't do it so well. I learned to love them and also their lifestyle, and I appreciated over time the fact that these guys and ladies, for that matter, go out and they sign checks. They don't receive them. They put their net worth and their whole kind of self on the line every day when they're out trying to make a living for their family and their employees too that they're working with. So I respect those people. And so when I went to college, my undergrad was in personal finance. From there, I went to work with a Wall Street firm. I was working in their Newport Beach, California office, which was, I think, their most profitable office at the time. So it was a lot of fun, and I learned a tremendous amount, and I became a certified financial planner and all that kind of stuff. And then my mother-in-law had some health issues, and so we moved up to be near her further north in California, and I started my own practice. And it wasn't long before I realized that the kind of work I was doing was working with business owners and their families, and I realized that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So I went to law school. At night, I continued to work my practice in the day. After I did that for 20 years, roughly, I ran a law firm. On one side of there's an office building, 5,000 square feet or so. Half the building was a law firm, the other half of the building, and there were different addresses and different employees. But I was the only person that worked in both businesses. I ran both of them, but I had professionals and support and all that on both of those other businesses. So I have worked in a dual world my whole career. We did business work in estate planning. I ran the wealth management firm too. So I have that sort of little broader background than most people have. And then from there, I started doing lots of transitions to next generations, sales of businesses, and just the transactional side of it. But in doing that over the years, I realized that the transactional side is really the end of it. People that don't prepare well either can't sell or can't transition. And if they do, they leave a lot of money on the table because they haven't done it well. And so about 5 years ago, I flipped my work here and this exit planning work into a consulting firm instead of doing the work through the law firm.
There's a lot there. I want to go back now and peel back a few layers of the onion. You mentioned that you went to law school after your undergrad. Like, what age were you when you actually decided to go to law school?
I started when I was 26.
20. Okay. All right. So you were still young.
I was.
At 26, you had started your own firm after leaving the Wall Street firm and decided to go back to school. What was that transition like for you when you transitioned from corporate, right, working for the Wall Street firm, and then to essentially consultant business owner running your own show? Was that an easy transition, or was that just a real challenge for you?
It was a bit of a challenge because with the Wall Street firm, I had lots of support people and structure and pretty much everything taken care of. It's felt like the cradle to grave kind of a thing almost. And whenever I started my own, I realized I don't have people yet for this or that, and I've got to do it. So it really did give me a good grounding, if you will, to understand the jobs of people that would later work for me, and also to understand all the little pieces about running a business on my own too. Because I think to be one of the reasons I believe that has made me more effective is that I have run businesses. I have built businesses. I built a farming operation. I had a fairly good sized clientele in agriculture in California. And so I built a farm so that I could understand agriculture better. And it gave me unbelievable insights into what the farmers deal with and the complexity of getting tree fruit, for instance, out of the Central Valley of California it's a complex business.
You made the transition. How did you get your first clients?
Believe it or not, I sat down, I went through the community around there and I figured out the people that I thought that I would like to have as clients. And then I wrote a personal handwritten letter to every single one of them. There were 10 of them. Every single one of them became clients.
What did that letter say?
I don't know. I get asked all the time, did you save a copy of those letters? I was like, you know what? I was too young and too stupid to do that at the time.
So you don't know what the letter said, but what do you think made it work, just from your recollection and memory?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have perfect clarity of memory on it, but I basically told them where I came from, what my passion was, what I've done towards educating myself to better learn and to serve business owners. The business owners I went after were actually pretty diverse because I had a couple of doctors that own their own practices. I had a few large manufacturing companies. I had a few large agricultural companies. I had a couple of trucking companies. They were diverse, but I understood both academically and personally that being in business was a job. And I didn't really see the business market at the time being well served. And I still don't. It's the reason why our consulting, we plan through the business instead of through the personal side. So the typical financial planning world, they deal with the personal finance side. But 70 to 90% of a business owner's net worth is generally tied up in the business, not in the personal assets. And so we have kind of flipped the world around where business hires us, we plan through the business. We will also go down and do work with the major shareholders, and we collectively work with them because it's a collaborative process and one where we're trying to build both the business and the family.
I love the hustle of just the idea and the execution on writing those letters. I remember many years ago when I was trying to raise some money to be able to go overseas, I would do any job to make some money. And back then there was this thing called telephone book or directory, and I remember picking up the yellow pages, flipping through and just calling almost every single company that I could find until one of them said, yeah, we have a job available for you. And I started the next day. So that type of entrepreneurial spirit and that hustle and just the attitude of, I'm just going to put stuff out there and just see what happens rather than sitting and thinking and planning. I mean, you could have written an extensive business plan and try to explore and investigate all the different angles, but instead it sounds like you just got started with it and made something happen. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. I was probably too dumb at the time to think that I need to do tons of research and all that kind of stuff. I just figured out that I really just needed a clear message and I needed to put it out there. You can learn and grow and test and test and test, but if you don't ever get started and you're not moving, you just can't accomplish anything. You're just like a deer in the headlights.
And I think actually what you just mentioned right there, Randy, is a very good point that sometimes it might sound bad, but being a bit dumb, right? Being a bit ignorant can actually be a really great advantage, because what I've seen and observed a lot of people do who are very, very smart, people who have had high level positions in Fortune 500 or 100 organizations, or those that have MBAs and PhDs. I mean, they're very, very well educated and very smart. But what typically tends to happen is they overthink a lot of stuff. And not everyone's like this, but they overthink and they overanalyze, and that really holds back them taking action. And action is what really creates the ability to achieve progress and results.
I don't know if it's fear or pride. It depends on the person probably, but there's a combination of fear and pride that keeps people from wanting to do something that they think they're not quite perfect at almost. And so they have a hesitancy to put things out there because they don't want to be judged for being not as good as they think they should be, kind of a thing. But it becomes a significant hindrance to their ability to grow as individuals and also to grow the company. It is a big deal. You did a podcast recently about this, frankly, which was really good. That whole thing, you were talking to the consultant person. I think the question you asked was, what was the most important step to take right now to get new business? That is a really big question. Too many people are stuck doing things they shouldn't be doing. They need to put it out in the wind and have a little guts and a little courage here.
Definitely. So let's fast forward a little bit. You got to this point where You now have your law degree. You have your certification as a financial planner. You're running two separate businesses. How do you do that? I've experienced it myself as well, running two businesses at the exact same time. We actually just sold one of the businesses a few months back. How many employees did you have in each of those businesses?
There were smallish businesses. I think I would say about 5 in each business.
Right. Small, but still two living businesses that need attention and need support. I just think about all the people who come up with excuses and reasons why they can't do something and they're so busy and they can't write an article or whatever it might be. And here you are running two businesses. So what was your secret to productivity? How did you ensure that both businesses could thrive?
Well, I designed the businesses so that everybody was working at their highest and best use. And that included me. I hired and trained people to do different pieces of those businesses. And to the extent possible, I was only working at my highest value to both companies. I did well, honestly. It's the same kind of thing that we do when we're working with business owners and we figure out that the business owner is really working with his head down in the weeds and we need to get him to where he's working on the business more than working in it so that we can use that vision and the clarity and also the creativity which he needs to have. And it's hard to have that when your head's down in the weeds all the time.
You've worked with a lot of business owners over the years. For those, especially that are service-based business industries, what are some of the biggest mistakes or challenges that you see those people facing?
Too many of them approach it as a job instead of as a business. They think that what they do is really limited to their own particular knowledge so that nobody else can do large parts of what they do. And so they retain too much. And ultimately, they themselves become the bottleneck for why the company can't or won't grow. Right now, we have a couple of consulting companies we're working with to help them grow to sell because consulting companies can sell. But if the business is too tied to the owner and there's not a set of processes and intellectual capital that is built into that, there's nothing to buy. You just have a job. You don't have a business. So that's the biggest mistake that I see.
I think that's very wise words. And it also goes back to the approach of working in the business versus working on the business. I often talk about the difference, Randy, between a consultant and a consulting business owner. There's many people who are consultants, but those people essentially are just focused on their craft, and they could be essentially employees or contractors within any company. But a consulting business owner is one who is actually running the business, and they're not only working in the business, they're ensuring they're working on the business in terms of marketing and IP and growth and so forth. So I think that's a really great point that you just made. You wrote a book, The BraveHeart Exit. How has that impacted your business since writing it? While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
It's been helpful to us to write it. Part of the reason I did it was because I have my daughter Ellen works with me. She's been with me about 4 years or so. And my son Micah worked with me right before he went to law school. He's graduating this spring. I have 5 kids. So all my kids have kind of worked up through my businesses to try to teach them how to work and give them a big, broad view of what's possible in the world. But the book itself, I started to write it because I realized that I really wasn't seeing in the marketplace the kind of broad planning that I think needs to be done for the business and the family, because the family should be benefiting the business and the business should be benefiting the family. There's lots of opportunities that are missed in that part of it. And there's also a lot of it just missed because the business is considered to be sort of a byproduct. We work, we have a business, we make a living out of it, but nobody's really looking ahead. So I wrote the book because I realized I can only deal with so many people. So we wrote the book as a roadmap to people, especially on the smaller end of the scale, that don't usually employ lots of professionals around them. We wanted to give them a sense of the steps that need to be taken because they need to realize the value from the business. It is just a big deal to me that over the years, I've had to deal with a number of people that have come to see me whose husbands had died or somebody became disabled, and now the company basically has to be shut down because the employees all run. There's no value left because there was no planning to retain people. There was no backup. There was no business built. It was too much of a job. And so when the owner's gone, the family that used to live really well has nothing. And I got really tired of seeing that. So I decided I was going to write a book to give everybody the chance to understand the issues and see what the possibilities were. If you only have a business worth $500,000, that's really what you have. If you lose the value of that, that's substantially hard for you and your spouse. If you can realize it and put the company in a position where it can be sold and you get your $500 or $1 million, even if you're living modestly, that's a decent retirement for many people. But whether it's really small, like for the purpose I wrote for the book, for everybody to understand it, it's still all you have. So you need to maximize what your assets are to the extent possible.
So Randy, let's talk about that, because I think there are a lot of consultants who might be generating 300, they're maybe around the $1 million mark, but they've intentionally chosen to keep their business more as a lifestyle business. They're not interested in having 5 or 10 employees that they need to manage. They want to keep things very simple and clean. So from your experience, they're building up wealth. They have a great lifestyle. They have lots of freedom and lots of flexibility. What's important for them to be thinking about in terms of planning and protection and preservation of their wealth and of their legacy?
That is a great question. When we're dealing with the kinds of people we like to deal with, they are people that focus on what we call family, freedom, and profit. With regard to the profit side here, that is, we typically like to see business owners run the company in the most profitable manner, not necessarily just at top line growth. I see that often too as I come in. Everything's measured off of top line growth. All growth isn't great growth, frankly. You can destroy profit. You take on business lines maybe you shouldn't have taken on, and they're sucking the life out of the company. There's all kinds of different issues there. But we like to see, like I said, the family benefit the business and the business benefit the family. Part of the point that we make along the way with all of our business owners is that we like to see them diversify out of the value of the company. If right now the company makes up 70, 80, 90% of your net worth, over time, we like to go ahead and try to squeeze money out either into pension plans or different ways of pulling money out of the company and creating a net worth that is not based solely on the company, all those things. You and I have seen too many of these companies that have been successful and strong, and over time, either international competition is affecting their business model. I have a case I looked at just recently in Seattle, and that's what's happening. The Chinese are basically dumping into their market. What's been an extremely profitable business for many, many years is all of a sudden on the edge. So we always tell the people, listen, I don't know what your future is. I don't know if technology will take your company out. I don't know if just the public's whim of what they like and don't like. I don't know if deep recession. There's a lot of possibilities. Death, disability, all these other things. There's always risks to business. When we come in, we do this top-down work where we come in and we look at the business and the family. Part of what we do is look for the risks to the business and the family, and then we start shoring up those risks. We want to mitigate them or eliminate them. But we want to deal with them. And way too many business owners are looking just at the rosy side of life, and they don't realize all the ways that they can be stung. And so a wise man looks into the future and recognizes the risks and does something about them before they get too close.
I think that there's some really great points there. The first one, you kind of start off, and I'm a very big believer in this as well, that there's so many people out there who talk about top line revenue. They make a big deal about, oh, I'm generating 10 million or 20 million or whatever it is. But when you ask them, how much are you taking home? Oh, I took home 150,000. Wow, that's exciting. And for some people, that number might be exciting, but you can find someone who has a $500,000 business or $1 million business, and they're personally taking home 300,000, 400,000, 700,000 or more, depending on what those numbers are. Like, that's really what matters, right? At the end of the day is how much are you actually taking home? And I think the second point that you're making here, which is a really important one, is finances. There's so many people who are building business. They might be generating some good revenue, but they don't have the right strategy or the right mindset around money, about how they invest their money or how they look for opportunities to work with a good accountant or a good tax planning person, because they can, in many cases, be saving a lot more money or keeping a lot more money than they are right now.
That's right, because eventually we want them to get to the point where the capital is going to work for them and not them work for the capital. If you don't do that wisely and strategically, you end up being somebody that the more money you make, the more you just continue to raise your standard of living, and your family never becomes worth anything. It just lives really well. And then when tragedy intervenes, like I'm talking about, something for whatever reason goes wrong in the business, you used to live like you made $2 million a year, but now the company's gone down and you have no assets. And so you're absolutely broke. I have just seen way too many people in my time think that cash flow is all that matters, and they live on the cash flow. And when the cash flow is gone, their lives are completely different.
So I'm going to switch this up for a moment here, Randy, because you've built multiple businesses, and you and your wife, your family, you've raised 5 kids. How did you do that? That's a lot of kids.
It's funny you say that. I think of it as being a lot too, but I met somebody the other day who told me they had 11 and he was younger than me. I was like, oh my goodness, I thought 5 was a lot.
Yeah, I'm really interested to know. I mean, in terms of from a work-life balance and from a time management perspective, because I get the sense and the feeling that you are a family-focused person, that family is number one priority for you, yet you've also built multiple businesses that have been successful. And, I feel the same way in terms of family first, but also making sure that the business continues to grow and serving clients and all of that. So just interested in your approach and your mindset and thinking around that.
My kids turned out, honestly, so unbelievably well. I know it was truly a gift of God, not just because I was so brilliant or my wife was so brilliant. We did do early things, like my wife decided when our first one hit kindergarten age, she wanted to teach her how to read at home instead of sending her to school. Well, I didn't even go to kindergarten. I don't see a big downside in that one. My wife taught her how to read. I think she was 5, and she could read like unbelievably well. And so she just kept going. And so for the first 4 kids, my wife homeschooled those kids until they were in the 8th grade. And then we put them in private school. So we would do things too that were probably pretty unique. So when my wife was teaching the older kids, she wanted them to learn Latin. And of course, I know people don't do that very often these days, but it has a good foundation, and the English language is largely built on Latin anyway. And so it gives us a lot of word meanings and that sort of thing. Whenever she got to a certain level, I hired the university professor to come teach my kids Latin once a week. We did things with our kids when we were in California, and in the 4th grade, you're supposed to learn California history. Nobody learns history anymore, I think. So they had the mission system, in California that went the length and from the bottom to the top of California pretty much. And so while the other kids were sitting in class looking at pictures, my kids were visiting all of them. We went on vacations when everybody else was in school. So I spent time with them. I would say that in hindsight, I probably worked a little bit too much, especially in the early years. And my wife would tell you that. The funny thing about it is that my kids don't remember that. All they remember is by the time they were up and lucid about everything, I was realizing that I really needed to spend time with my wife and children, and it wasn't just about building business. And I think I was a little bit too distracted early, but thank God I got that clear before it impacted very hard.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of us come to in just putting things into perspective. Many of us work so hard to build our businesses, and hopefully we realize early on that there's a reason why we're working so hard to build those businesses, not just for the sake of the business, but it's for our family or for our community or for creating a legacy, and putting that all into perspective can really help us manage how we approach things and how we make decisions in our life.
It does. And I would just love to encourage your audience too, because I've sat in a number of meetings where many people have no relationship with their children and they can't see their grandkids. You remember the song Cats in the Cradle? I try to play that thing for myself every 6 months or so to remind myself. And I recommend it, just the idea that if we don't spend the time with our children when they're young and growing up, they will not spend the time with us when we're older.
Yeah, great reminder. Randy, this has been a really fun conversation. I've enjoyed it immensely. I want to thank you again for coming on. And what's the best way for people to learn more about your work and to connect with you?
Our website is thebraveheartexit.com or thebraveheartbusiness.com. But you can even just Google Randy Long, BraveHeart Exit. That'll show my book, which is on Amazon, and it'll also pull you to our website. longbusinessadvisors.com also gets you to the website.
We'll have everything in the show notes, so you can just head over to consultingsuccess.com, look for Randy's podcast episode, and you'll find the resources and links to Randy's book and to his website and so forth. We'll have it all there. Randy, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.